thank you all for coming this afternoon to our event, Ocean Literacy for All, in support of SDG 14. And I'm sorry that we don't have seating for everyone, but we'll do our best to behave in this room. So, yes, could we have the mic on? Mics on? Yes? Okay, so just some housekeeping for our side event. We are recording this event. It's also being streamed live on Facebook and on Twitter. So we wanted you all to be aware of that. In the back of the room, there is a handout that describes all of the wonderful organizations that have partnered to put on this side event today. We encourage you to read a little bit about all of our colleagues. And we just wanted to briefly go over our simple goal and intention for this side event. We wanted to do this to further develop the partnerships that have been initiated through several of the activities that you'll learn about this afternoon. And these activities, these partnerships, have been structured to raise awareness on conservation and sustainable use of our ocean and its resources. And it's a very simple statement, but a very complicated thing to achieve, as we all know. Next slide. And we have, as I mentioned, a list of international organizations that have partnered to bring this program to you today. And they're listed up here: the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, the Consortium for Ocean Science Exploration and Engagement, the EU Sea Change Project, Canada's Ocean Frontier Institute, the World Ocean Network, and Ciência Viva in Portugal. And so, without further ado, my colleague Francesca Santoro from the IOC will, I'm sorry? Yeah, oh yes, we're going to show the video. Thank you for that reminder. So before Francesca introduces our special guests, the team that has come together to produce this event collected videos and supplied them to our colleagues at the Ocean Frontier Institute in Canada, and the Canadian Film Board really did a fabulous job in compiling these videos, and we'd like to show you the compilation now.
The ocean is just really beautiful, and it's full of amazing creatures and organisms that we don't see anywhere else on our planet.
The life of the human is depended by the ocean.
São uma das principais fontes de hidratação no mundo.
If the ocean is polluted, then it will affect our food supply.
É também o sítio onde muitos animais vivem e é muito importante para nós.
If you don't learn about the ocean, then how will you know about all the amazing things in it?
Marine creatures that are really interesting are jellyfish. They are the ultimate survivors. One of them, Turritopsis nutricula, can revert back to its younger state of life, and therefore is practically immortal.
Meu animal marinho preferido é o leão marinho.
O meu animal marinho preferido é o bacalhau.
O meu animal marinho favorito é o golfinho.
The beluga whale, because they're really soft and really cute.
My favorite sea creature is the sea urchin. It lives up to over 200 years old.
Ang paborito ko pong lamang dagat ay pawikan.
Because it's like slow and it takes its time, but in the water it can go really fast.
المحيط يفتح لنا مجال كثير من الأشغال مثل الصيد.
أنا أكبر أشتغل في البحر.
L'océan est très important pour la régulation du climat.
ويؤثر فيها ويشجع السياحة وبشكل دخل للأسر والدولة ويسهم في التوازن البيئي وبتكثير الثورة البحرية كالسمك والمرجان.
qodobkii labaad waxa weeyaan badweyntu waxay noo soo fidisaa amba noo keentaa hawadaasoo laga dhalin karayo korontadaasoo la yidhaahdo korontada hawada.
Dahil hindi lang ito basta isang malaking anyong tubig, ngunit ito ang dugong buhay ng ating planeta.
There's a lot we need to discover about the ocean, and when we do, we can innovate new ideas to put more use to the ocean while protecting it.
If the world treated us like we treated the ocean, then there wouldn't be any us.
Memahami ekosistem lautan sangat penting bagi kita untuk menjaga bumi kita.
Why study marine science? Why not? It's fascinating!
Hopefully that provides a little bit of inspiration this late in our conference day. And Francesca will now introduce our special guest this afternoon.
So it's my great pleasure. It's my great pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Stefan Berggren, Director of the Swedish Ministry of Environment and Energy.
Thank you. Just a brief introduction. I'm Director of the department dealing with marine water and terrestrial issues concerning the environment in the Ministry of Environment in Sweden. Let me first sort of read my notes for a minute and just thank you all for coming. There are so many people here, and there's a lot of energy, and you can feel it in the hallways, and you can feel it in the Vienna Cafe, and there's a lot of energy during this conference, and I'm very happy for that. Since Sweden is one of the hosts of the conference, we're very happy that you're all here. And we also note that the ocean literacy is mentioned in a lot of the different sessions. So it's really an area of very much interest, I would say. And finally, before I start my presentation, we also just heard that Portugal volunteered to host the next SDG 14 conference in 3 years. So it seems to be in the plenary, so it seems to be a continuing momentum for those issues. So, Executive Secretary and dear friends of the ocean and friends of ocean literacy. It's an honor for me as a representative of the Swedish government to address you at this event. And just allow me to go back a bit. In June 1972, exactly 45 years ago, the first UN conference on environment was hosted in Sweden, in Stockholm, my hometown. In 1972, a declaration was adopted, and its Principle 7, it called to the states to take all possible steps to prevent pollution of the seas. And another principle in the Stockholm Declaration was Principle 19, and that stated that education in environmental matters for the younger generation as well as for adults giving due consideration to the underprivileged is essential. And the text also reached out to individuals, enterprises and communities. So we have, for the past 40 years, we have been working on that. And it was clear already 40 years ago that we needed to protect the ocean and that education is one of the keys to the protection of However, during these 45 years, our society and our oceans have undergone enormous change, and the ones like me, who were in school at the time of the Stockholm Conference, are here today, taking decisions for the next generation. So we have a responsibility, and we have also a possibility. And today, science gives us much more information than we ever had before concerning the state of our environment and of our ocean. And environmental awareness has grown strongly, but yet, with the poor status of our oceans, we have to keep up the focus of raising awareness for the younger generation as well as for the adults. The Agenda 2030 gives us, the knowledge makers, a unique platform for action. It's together with the climate agreement, it has provided us with a tool for a sustainable future, and the goal 4 on quality education and goal 14 on life need waters needs, of course, go hand in hand. That's pretty obvious to this audience, but still it needs to be said, I think. And here UNESCO has an important role to play in supporting its member states in the implementation of Agenda 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals demonstrate that the mandate of UNESCO is more relevant than ever, and Sweden welcomes the ambition to be active in your implementation of the agenda. And Sweden will contribute with the final support for the ocean literacy and strongly welcomes the strong focus that UNESCO gives to these issues. And let me finalize by a question. What technology did we have 45 years ago? Well, we certainly didn't have mobile phones or social media or Twitter. But it's interesting to elaborate a bit on what technology will we have in 45 years, in the future to come. And how will education be developed during those years? How will we learn in the future? Very interesting aspects, especially when it comes to regional aspects. Well, there's a lot of things that goes through my mind, and there's a lot of possibilities, I would say. So I look forward to this seminar and to hear more about the work towards living up to Principle 19 of the Stockholm Declaration in 1972, and the goals 4 and 14 of the Strategic Development Goals. Thank you.
And it's now a great pleasure to give the floor to the Director General of UNESCO, Irina Bokova. Thank you very much, Francesco, and thank you, Mr. Berger, for this very encouraging beginning. And let me also thank all the partners for this so important event, most particularly the Ocean Frontier Institute for the kind help in presenting this wonderful and very inspiring, I would say, documentary. Because nothing better than young people and children who are fascinated by ocean science and by biodiversity. I think this is something that we all need these days of challenges. So let me just say that for us, for UNESCO, it is an extremely relevant and timely discussion, because as Mr. Bergen just said, it is really where the cross-section of goal number 4 and number 14 come into play. And everybody is asking us and not to work in silos, but to look across. I think the challenge of the Agenda 2030 compared to the previous Millennium Development Goals and others, that this is complex, it is horizontal, and it is interlinked. And I think our debate today about the literacy, ocean literacy, is so relevant that we cannot implement goal number 4 when we speak about education for sustainable development without, in this particular case, also ocean literacy and vice versa. So just to reinforce what you, Mr. Berggren, said. Now, I would like to start my presentation with the quote which I really like very much, and it's not the first time I'm mentioning it. It's about what Sylvia Earle, a great American marine biologist, said that far and away the greatest threat to the ocean, and thus to ourselves, is ignorance. And I think this reflects exactly what the challenge is. Because most of us live our lives unaware of how our day-to-day actions affect the health of the ocean, or vice versa, how the health of the ocean affects our own daily lives. Most citizens and even decision makers know very little about the full extent of the medical, economic, social, political, environmental importance of the sea. And when I walk the corridors here now of the United Nations, I think all these exhibitions that are shown, it's indeed about literacy, literacy about the oceans. But sometimes scholars call it the ocean blindness. And this can lead, of course, to sometimes inappropriate or even dangerous decisions, especially for those who live on the coasts or whose jobs, houses and lives depend directly on the ocean. So, how to respond to this challenge? I believe that strengthening the ocean literacy and the fact that we have so many diverse partners, there is so much mobilization on the part of civil society to better understand the ocean through education, research, communication, information, is something to be very much welcome. We are leading a global movement, and I really emphasize movement. Because it is not just one action that we want governments to take, but it is a real movement to raise the profile of ocean science, to recognize its key role for sustainability, particularly in the Paris Climate Agreement. And this, of course, is the message of the standalone Sustainable Development Goal of the Oceans, the SDG 14, for the global ocean community. This is why we also launched the first ever Global Ocean Science Report, which provides a groundbreaking snapshot on the state of ocean science across the world. And today there were plenty of debates around the report, and I would like to thank our team for putting this report, so important report. And of course to thank some of the partners that supported its elaboration and our activity in this particular case. The Italian government, who was very helpful in organizing this meeting today. But dear friends, this is not enough, because we need to share the results and benefits of research with all citizens in all segments of societies. And this is what we call the ocean literacy. We must build a global constituency for the ocean. We must build robust, effective and trusted policies fostering citizens' experiences. We must transform the way we think and act, starting with our lifestyles. To achieve this change, we need new skills, values and attitudes that lead to more ocean sustainable societies. And this starts, of course, on the benches of schools. Education systems must define relevant learning objectives and learning contents, introducing pedagogies that empower learners. Ocean literacy is much more than just educating or informing the public about the importance of the ocean. It is about indeed fostering an ocean literate society able to take informed and responsible decisions. UNESCO, as I mentioned, as the lead agency of the United Nations for Education for Sustainable Development, and at the same time ocean science, is very much committed to taking on this task. We know that the ocean constitutes over 90% of the habitable space of the planet, and right now, unfortunately, ocean science funding varies between 0.4 and 4% of national research and development funding. And we all know that it is not sufficient. We just make have to do better. So we must work more with member states, with governments, to change this attitude. We must work with the civil society, we must work with the private sector and other stakeholders to save the ocean for the current and the future generations. I would like particularly once again to thank the Swedish government, because the Swedish government has announced the support for UNESCO's and our ocean literacy activities. I think this is something to be very welcomed, and we believe that it will be instrumental in implementation of the voluntary commitment, and we expect more also to come. So I would like once again to say that we need everyone's support, and this event today, I think, opens new avenues for our work of how we make work in synergy between goal number 4, goal number 14, because we cannot change mentalities and habitudes until we have embed this ambition into the schools, but also in the whole of the societies. So I think our ambition should go beyond one single program, one textbook. We need to establish and to lead a global movement, and once again I really think it's important that we start a global movement for ocean literacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister and Director General. Yes. And so now we are going to start our round of panel speakers. And you'll see that there are pink and yellow index cards around the room. And we encourage you that if you have questions that develop as the speakers are presenting their thoughts and ideas, please write those comments on the yellow cards. And the pink cards are for next steps that you think our global community of ocean scientists, education professionals, policymakers, and business leaders could take to form this global partnership for ocean literacy. So our first speaker, oh, she's up, okay. Our first speaker is Francesca Santoro. Francesca is currently a program specialist at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. She has served as the technical secretary of the Northeastern Atlantic, Mediterranean, and Connected Seas Tsunami Early Warning and Mitigation System. She also served as the head of that system's information center. And she is now in charge of the IOC's ocean literacy program. So, Francesca.
Thank you very much. So, first I would like to say that I'm really happy to see all these people here. It means a lot to us because we have started working on ocean literacy with our partners since only maybe a couple of years. So seeing all these people here and all this support for our program is really a big reward for all of us. My presentation is about why ocean literacy is important and relevant for the implementation of SDG 15 and other SDGs. So the importance of having a number of SDGs is that they provide a globally shared framework that complements other international conventions or international laws. They are there and help us to catalyze and mobilize stakeholders, foster collaboration between the members of the international community. I think we all agree that SDGs are a step forward in relation to the MDGs, because the SDGs cover the whole sustainable development universe, including all areas of human enterprise on Earth, and they target major environmental issues. So I listed here some of the other SDGs that are covering other elements of the Earth system. So SDG 6, which is about clean water and sanitation, SDG 13, about climate action, SDG 15, which is life on land, and then of course SDG 14, which is life without water. Next slide. So I think we should very strongly say that a global sustainable development agenda has to articulate a compelling narrative of change. We need this narrative of change, and we need to be able to communicate to the public, to citizens, to other stakeholders, to the public sectors, why we need to drive for this change. And we need also to do that by highlighting what are the drivers for this change and what are the barriers to the transformation which is sought. It's very important to have this set of SDGs because they help us showing also how all the pillars, the three pillars of sustainable development, so economy, society, and environment, are interlinked. So it's very important, and I would like to echo what has been said, that we need for sure work on SDG 14, but also try to connect to other SDGs. When it comes to ocean, all the marine problems that we have to face, marine litter, ocean acidification, they are deeply rooted in individual behaviors and in individual choices. So if we want to create a successful bottom-up approach to marine issues, citizens need to understand the ocean influence on them and their influence on the ocean. In this way, we will be able to prepare an entire community for a closer relation to the sea, but we will also have more and more informed public that will most probably more keen on supporting investment in ocean science. So this is very much in relation to Target 14.8 of SDG 14, and also the sustainable management of marine ecosystems, so Target 14.2 of SDG 14. So, as been already mentioned, ocean literacy is a tool, is an approach that helps us linking, in particular, SDG 14 with SDG 4, and in particular, I would like to mention the target 4.7.1, which asks to extend global citizen education and education for sustainable development, including gender equality and human rights, and mainstream at all levels in national education policies, curricula, teacher education, and student assessment. So let me conclude by quoting an ocean scientist, which is also very much helping our community to communicate, to educate citizens and the society. So he said, people have to sacrifice a little bit of their short-term self-interest to help the world be a better place for the long term. And how you get people to do that, I think, is the most important research that can be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesca. And we will hopefully have some time for questions when all the panelists are finished. But if you have a burning question, again, please write it on the yellow cards that are around the room. And now I will introduce myself. I'm Gail Scowcroft. I'm the Associate Director of the Inner Space Center at the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography. The Inner Space Center is a national facility that supports ocean science research and exploration, as well as ocean science education. I'm also the Executive Director of the Consortium for Ocean Science Exploration and Engagement, which is an international network of ocean science research institutions and education institutions. And finally, I'm currently serving a term on the United States Ocean Research Advisory Panel, which is the federal advisory committee that provides independent advice on matters related to the ocean to the U.S. government. Hopefully they're still listening to us. So next slide. So I'm going to talk to you about COSI today, because that's the organization that has begun to work with the IOC to build this global ocean science education community. COSI has a core mission to build capacities among the global research, education, business, and policy communities through ocean science education, recognizing this important relationship between the ocean and our global citizens. And that directly addresses SDG 14. Next slide, please. So the goals for these international collaborations are COSI goals. I'm not going to necessarily read all these words to save time, but these are also the goals of the IOC, and which is why we have been working together for the last few years, as I say, to build a global community. And it's been very encouraging to see that people all over the world are willing to come together, spend their time, their volunteer time, and the funds from their various institutions and organizations to build this network. Next slide. So for the last 3 years, we've been convening the Global Ocean Science Education Workshops, or the GOES workshops. And thus far, we've had representation delegates from over 30 nations at these workshops and involved now in these 5 new international working groups. These international working groups were convened beginning this year in 2017. We had our 3rd GOES workshop in Venice 2 weeks ago. And these are the 5 themes that the working groups are tackling. Developing common ocean science messages and communication tools that can be used across nations. Developing strategies to promote workforce issues related to the needs of the blue economy. There's a group that is developing an international platform for sharing information about resources, projects, and people. Another group is working on resources for policymakers and business leaders. I'll come back to that at the end. And also, there's a new working group that's establishing further collaborations in support of World Ocean Day. And you too can join one of those working groups. And if there's an email list going around, make sure you sign your name and email address if you'd like more information. So as an outcome of these international working groups and the workshops that we've been conducting, there has been consensus from our delegates that we should focus international efforts on key topics. That within our own nations there may be many topics that we would like to address. But as a global community, we should have priorities, and these are the priorities that have been identified. The ocean and human health, including coastal resilience, the ocean's role in climate change, and the effect of climate change on ocean systems, and biodiversity, including food security and fisheries. So next slide. And so I will sum up by giving you our action plan, an hour, meaning this global community that's now forging and coming together. We will be over the course of the next year until the next GOES workshop in 2018. We will be initiating new activities in support of SDG 14, fostering the work of these working groups, which will continue over the next year. We have committed 2 weeks ago to developing a certificate program for business leaders and policymakers focused on ocean science and technology. We'll be providing a forum to share coastal resilience strategies across the world, and of course, supporting ocean literacy initiatives in developing countries. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but if we all pull together, we can get it done. Thank you very much. And so our next panelist is Craig McLean. Craig is the Assistant Administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration of the United States, and he is the acting NOAA Chief Scientist. He also serves as the U.S. representative to the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission and as the U.S. representative for the U.S. European Union and Canadian Galway Statement on Atlantic Ocean Cooperation. Craig.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. I'd like to start with a context-setting question here. How many of you went through grammar school with a textbook that showed the oxygen cycle? And it included a tree. It did not include the ocean to show where more than half of the oxygen comes from. So when we start talking about how do we educate people, we have to look at how we've been educating people. Second question I'd like to ask you, when we fill rooms like this, and goodness sakes, I am just so delighted, as was Director General Bokova, in welcoming you. How many people have really come here for this subject? How many people in here are career ocean scientists? Probably a good few. How many people here are organizational psychologists who understand how people think? humor aside, we have one. Humor aside, there's a real reason for my asking that question. We don't usually recruit the people whose expertise is necessary to answer the next question. We're on the present question. We already live this, we already love this, we already believe this. So how could we change the way the world thinks? And maybe it's not by talking to ourselves, it's by expanding the breadth of the creativity. So let me talk a bit about creativity. I'm here to brief you on the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, which started under what has become known as the Galway Statement, was signed in 2013. Under the general rubric of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, where member states are encouraged to work along major ocean basins, with the wisdom and the leadership of Ireland, along came this tripartite agreement between the United States, Canada, and the European Union, ably led by John Bell from the European Union, and Trevor Swertfeger from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, and unfortunately they picked me to represent the United States. But 2 out of 3 is not bad. This presentation that I'm offering right now was to be given by Paula Keener, and many of you know Paula, and she is an expert ocean educator. Paula matured in a program that we ran inside of NOAA, a point where by recruiting educators to talk to teachers, not scientists to talk to teachers, we now have more than 1 million classroom lesson plans downloaded per year. And I found that absolutely remarkable. So once again, I'm sorry you got me instead of Paula. So if I could run through, please, with the next slide, the Galway Statement. I'm sorry, back one, I beg your pardon. Yeah. In terms of what is the Galway Statement, we identified several common areas of interest across the European Union, Canada, and the United States to map the seabed. And you heard some inspiring remarks from the chair of the Nippon Foundation today about the importance of mapping the world's oceans. We also look to aquaculture. We also look to ocean health and stressors, human health, and the health of the oceans, and then also ocean observations and prediction. These are important subjects, quite common to most people's area of interest, regardless of what nation or region you come from. But what we decided to do in the Galway implementation is to put ocean literacy in an application towards each of these areas. And in the next slide, I'll just show one example. As we try and map oceans, we're using opportunities to put young scientists and young early career representatives of hydrographic sciences and survey on the same ship to try and build careers as the young people grow up and out throughout the course of their career. So we are applying education and ocean literacy to our ocean mapping objective. The next slide would show how we're trying to apply, through the use of young people's experiences, ocean observing. And this young lady found a free-floating, GPS-enabled boat that went from Cape Cod, United States, over to Galway. And she found it on the beach in Galway, and she understands the route that this vessel took because it was monitored live on web, etc. So it's a creative means to bring young people into the equation. And now that boat is sailing again. It was deposited off of the research vessel Neil Armstrong in the Mid-Atlantic. I beg your pardon, it was deposited off of the Celtic Explorer, originally deployed from the Armstrong. So the last thing I want to point out is how we can be applying, back to Director General Bakova's comment, it's not about one program or one textbook and who's got a better one. It's about how can we mix the best practices and apply them uniformly. So what we're trying to show you here is through the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, we're taking the best practices that we can collectively find, apply them across all 3 governments, and hopefully have a better outcome. And we just share that experience with you, not trying to say that what we're doing in this undertaking is better than anything else. I think you'll probably see some pretty amazing stuff to follow. But the point being, include, infuse, and bring forward the ocean literacy components developed and built by people who are professionals in those areas so that we can maximize our impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig. Our next speaker is Peter Tuttendam. Peter is the president of the College of Exploration USA and managing director of Co-Exploration Limited in the UK, which is a part of the EU's Horizon 2020 Sea Change project for ocean literacy across Europe. He is an international leader in the ocean literacy movement, beginning in 2001 with National Geographic, and serving as one of the lead facilitators of the US ocean literacy movement, beginning in 2004. He also has been working with Francesca and I to co-convene the GOES workshops that I mentioned. Peter.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's always thrilling to talk about ocean literacy. For me, it's been a personal journey, starting in the early 2000s with National Geographic, who were concerned that geography wasn't on the curriculum, and so they started working on how to correct that. And then they decided that we should have the ocean as an example of how to teach geography, and we produced with them the beginning of this series of guidelines for ocean, sort of stepping stones towards ocean literacy. This is called Oceans for Life, and it's matching ocean topics to geography. How to get the oceans taught when they're not. In 2004, the US was concerned that there was no ocean being taught in schools, and I just wonder how many of you learned about the ocean in your high school or your middle school that's here? Okay. Well, it's not typical. No, so not a typical group. So it became something that we produced this guide, which is essentially ocean science principles and ideas and concepts to teach science in schools, and you can pick up one of these at the back. And so as Craig was saying, in 2012, actually, I met Wendy in Bruges, where there was the first ocean literacy conference in Europe, and that led to the Galway statement, actually, having the words ocean literacy in the agreement that Craig just referenced. And that then led to the European Union committing €6 million for two projects, one called Sea Change, and the other called Responsible, to advance ocean literacy in Europe. And that's what I'm here to talk about a little bit. And the idea about sea change is to bring about a fundamental sea change in the way European citizens view their relationship with the sea. And it does this by empowering them as ocean literate citizens to take direct and sustainable actions towards healthy seas, oceans, healthy communities, and ultimately a healthy planet. So we encourage you to pick up any of the material at the back and advertise that with these stickers and so on. So next slide, please. We've got 17 partners in this project, and we're already 2/3 of the way into it. Many and diverse activities which you can find on the seachangeproject.eu website, and also oceanliteracy.eu. So I'm really very, very excited about the commitment that the European Union have made to advancing ocean literacy in Europe. Very excited to be a part of forming the European Marine Science Educators Association, which is in its 5th conference now coming up in Malta in October. I encourage you to come to that. And we've got this diverse group of partners who've helped move this GOES agenda along. And I think Francesca, we've been working together to build this great global partnership. So next slide, please. So there's, as I said, there's some brochures and information at the back talking about our ocean, our health, and the activities of the Sea Change project. Next slide. There's some wonderful videos, a campaign too on the website which you can go to, talking about our ocean and our health, and that's a very strong emphasis. Okay, next slide. So there's a call to action coming out of this conference, and we see that Sea Change, our ocean, our future. Some call to action, we think Sea Change can help. The research that's gone on here, there's resources that are available to you, and I think the Sea Change project is probably a model of things that can be done around the world, and we're going to produce a legacy of the Sea Change work, which is going to be freely available on the website. A lot of different resources that are available, and really another interesting aspect of this is development of what's called the social innovation participatory process, which I think is a really exciting development of getting engagement. And it's all about engagement and empowerment. And I think the Sea Change project's done that. That's what ocean literacy is about. It's about encouraging everyone to become ocean literate in whatever way they can be. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Our next speaker is Daniel Schaefer. Daniel has been the CEO of the Foundation for Environmental Education since December 2013. Before this, he managed Echo Ocean, an NGO focused on the Mediterranean marine and coastal environment. Prior to that, he worked for many years as a research vessel captain, combining his love for the sea and passion for the environment. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I represent the Foundation for Environmental Education, which is an umbrella organization of NGOs from around the world that run our 5 programs in 75 countries, and it's run by 90 NGOs around the world. And two of our programs are directly connected to ocean literacy. The first is Eco Schools, which is a network of schools that run a process of 7 steps of education for sustainable development within the schools. And they do this on themes. And one of the themes that they can choose is, of course, the marine and coastal environment. And the children in these schools learn about local aspects of their marine and coastal environments and the global aspects of this. And I think the comment I want to make about that is that it's very important that when you present a topic like this, it has local relevance to the children that are participating in the process. Because it's very hard sometimes to understand things that are affecting other people very far away, or that things very far away are affecting us. And sometimes by having the ability to focus on the local and from there understanding the global is very important. The other program that we run, which is directly connected to this, is called Blue Flag. And the Blue Flag program is an accreditation program for beaches and marinas and boats in the tourism industry. And it has a very strong educational component base. It's one of the 4 pillars of the Blue Flag program is education. And I'm saying this because I think it's highly important that we recognize that adults have to be part of this process that we're talking about. We can't only invest in children, although they're the nicest audience. We have to accept the fact that we have to have adults as part of this process. And if you look at Blue Flag, for example, Blue Flag has educational activities that are happening for families or beachgoers, etc., that are going to the beach. But I think the most important process that is happening in a program like this is that you're working with policymakers and staff within municipalities, and you're educating them about the ocean and their environment. And then that affects the whole decision making within the local government. So this is very important. Let's go for the next slide, please. When I built this, I tried to look at the questions that we asked ourselves in preparation for this session. And a few of the things that I wanted to bring up, and again, it's relating to some of the things that I've said before, is that local context is highly important. That knowledge is only part of the process. For us, action has to be a strong part of this. And we want people to take action and change their behavior according to knowledge that they have accumulated. So this is how, at least, we build our programs. It's completely based on positive action. We believe strongly that by creating positive action, we create investment, personal investment, and community investment, school investment, business investment into certain processes. This investment brings a feeling of ownership towards our environment, towards our seas and coastal areas. And the last thing is that when you have a strong feeling of ownership that came from investment, then you start working for protection. So I think this is the process that we look at, and I think that what we bring to the table is in fact a network that allows many of you to contact us and disseminate the type of materials and work that you're doing through the network that we have in so many countries. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Our next speaker is Germanos Mastriani, and coordinator for the environment and development cooperation and head of the science policy interface for the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. He is in charge of ensuring environmental coherence in all developmental aid programs and is also the national focal point for land degradation, mountains, and global islands partnerships. Rumenos.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak before such an electrifying audience. When we think about achieving sustainability, our minds go to economy and policy, and this way we tend to forget that the real game changer is culture. Simply because, we tend to consider economical behavior as an automatical behavior determined by natural laws, but it is not true. Economic behavior is driven by cultural values and awareness. Especially in our case, the awareness that will help us go beyond the fundamental mistake. We have been conceiving our relationship to the environment as though there was a trade-off between development and the environment. It is not true. We know here in this room that sustainability tends to coincide with quality of life, justice, and peace. In this perspective, I would like to share with you a lesson learned by my country, but which I believe can be useful for everyone. And just to understand it, we have to go a little bit focusing on what Italy is. If you look at it morphologically, it's like a bridge across the Mediterranean. We are surrounded by the sea. It means that not one single inch of our territory is exempt from influences by the sea. This knowledge used to be part of traditional culture. Forecasts about the quality of wine were taken from the behavior of the sea a few months before. Then came industrialization, what we call the technocratic paradigm, and the buffer was inserted between this wisdom and how we treat nature. Luckily enough, the sea is so important for us that we reacted at once. Next slide, please. And we tried to react at the beginning the way policymakers would do, top-down. TV programs, school programs, fantastic, but they had one limit. They considered the ocean, the sea as a value, just as an ecosystem, which is perfect, but as an ecosystem totally disconnected from mankind. Now, recently we have arrived to a different approach, which I tried to show in this slide, where the ocean becomes important on many layers, up to one that defines our identity. And we can, sorry if I quote Pope, but I think we're trying to act in the perspective of an integral ecology of the sea. Here's the next slide. Out of this came something that I cannot ascribe to my government. It came out spontaneously of society. A system of partnerships that is engaging into one method, and this is the real lesson learned I want to talk about. Next slide, please. It's everyone spontaneously cooperating with everyone, from scientific institutions to sailing sport clubs to schools. They have put themselves in motion. Next slide. To do what? Not to say that the sea is precious because it's such a precious ecosystem, but to tell people the sea is important for your life. We have here a symbol of two ways we try to go to this approach. One is responsible tourism, the other one is slow fish. Slow fish is the sea segment of a total revolution in our approach to our territory. We used to consider that nature was a limit to our development. We rediscovered that nature gave us so many opportunities to develop. Next slide, please. And here came the secret. It is very important to have ocean literacy in the schools and in the documentaries on TV, etc. But what is really important is to have people participate, because this gives a sense of the most fundamental message that we are conveying. Next slide, please. It's not the sea is important, but what's good for you is good for your sea, and what's good for your sea is good for you. It's not only about the ocean, it was evident also in many campaigns to defend environmental values. One is palm oil. When we tried to react against palm oil excesses, showing the fate of the ecosystem, it didn't work. It was enough to say to people, that's bad for your health. Sustainability coincides with quality of life, that we reach the result. And it's going well. I think it can work everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruno. Our final speaker of the afternoon is Wendy Watson-Wright. Wendy is Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian-led Ocean Frontier Institute, which is headquartered at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Throughout her career, Wendy has held several senior positions in Fisheries and Oceans Canada, including that of Assistant Deputy Minister of Science, and was the first woman to be the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. Wendy.
Thank you so much, Gail, and thank you, Minister and DG, for your very inspiring remarks and also obvious enthusiastic support of ocean literacy. And thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful to see so many, and I know you'll be happy when we stop talking and you can start talking. The Ocean Frontier Institute, as Gail has said, is a Canadian-based transnational organization that conducts research for two things. One, to improve our understanding of how and why the ocean is changing, and two, to identify solutions that will enable the development of a safe and sustainable blue economy. Certainly you can read more about this in the handout that's been passed around. Now, the OFI obviously recognizes the importance of an ocean literate society that we've heard about today. An ocean literate society that is important to our economy, environment, culture, and society, both at a local, national, and global scales. And when I say ocean literacy, I mean more than just science, ocean science education. I do mean the whole gamut. That we're talking about economic, environmental, scientific, cultural, societal, and many other dimensions of the human relationship with the ocean. Next slide, please. So the OFI and Fisheries and Oceans Canada are both very proud to support a new initiative called Ocean School, which is developing a very innovational, I would say, educational platform to inform and inspire young people in Canada and around the world. And you saw just a taste of it, and you'll be able to see more tastes later. This is a free online inquiry-based platform that will use short films, educational films, 360-degree videos, immersive virtual reality experiences, and a whole raft of other interactive tools to connect learners to the ocean. And although it's designed for students aged 11 to 15, the content, in fact, is created in a flexible manner that makes the content accessible and engaging to learners of all ages, both inside and outside of the classroom. Now, the Ocean School team recently completed testing of the prototype platform and content, and they are currently revising it into a model that will be ready for public distribution in the spring of 2018. And one of the pilots was started in Nova Scotia. It was also tried out in Manitoba in Canada and in France. France, of course, is very interested because it's already bilingual English-French. So we're going to implement Ocean School in Canadian classrooms in the coming year, and we're working closely with the IOC of UNESCO and our other partners here to make it available to teachers and students and lifelong learners throughout the world. Now, the Ocean School Program Director and Science Education Coordinator are both here in the room, Janet and Sonia. Thank you very much. And I would encourage you to speak to them, if not tonight, over the next few days. They're going to be here all week. And to take a look at some of the virtual reality demonstration materials they have with them. And I must say, it's cool. Next slide, please. So Ocean School is one innovative example of the growing number of programs and projects around the world that are dedicated to fostering ocean literacy, and we've heard about many of them here today. But now I want to draw our attention to the section of the UN Ocean Conference Call to Action, shown here, that specifically references ocean literacy. And I'm hoping we can use some of our Q&A time today to discuss how we should go about answering this call, because I suspect we do have many of the right people in the room to provide some leadership on this particular action. And to do this, I suggest we answer these two questions, and just for your information, that's my granddaughter there. So we're starting her early. Ella loves the aquarium, loves the ocean. So the questions are first, what is the end goal, or the end goals, and what is the specific, measurable outcome we want to achieve as a result of answering this call to action? And keep in mind that right now we're talking about SDG 14, but as DG Bokova and Francesca have already said, we are connecting to other SDGs as well. And as we heard at Saturday yesterday, we indeed are seeking synergies, not silos in this. Secondly, once we've identified the end goal or goals, then who needs to do what? We've had a number of suggestions here already today from our panelists, but what do you think? And how, as Craig has already said or asked, how do we move beyond talking to ourselves and preaching to the converted? So I don't think we'll be able to fully answer all of these questions today, but I would encourage you to think about them, to think about these questions, think about your suggestions and answers, and let's all think about how we can come together to ensure we meet this call with action. So thank you very much. And a miracle of timing has occurred, and we actually have about 15 minutes for comments and questions. And so some of you have been writing questions on the yellow card, and Wendy's got a couple of great questions posed to us here at the end of our panel presentation. So we'll open the floor up for questions and comments. Okay, over here.
Thank you for this. I'm Tiffany Straza from the UN Environment Program in our Pacific office. And in terms of that question of strategies for moving forward, I think we've all seen the value of connections and relationships, and that allows more efficient action. There can be sometimes a push for individual action to get the corner of the market or to make your agency come forward. But from the country's perspective, at least in the Pacific Islands regions, the countries request a regional approach. In the South Pacific, they work through Council of Regional Organizations of the Pacific. And one of those is, well, several of those are here in Sweden, but I encourage you to go visit the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. They're the ones who I'm with this week. And UN Environment works closely with that organization. They have 26 country members. The countries request, because of the limited in-country capacity, they request for agencies to work through that. So I think the answer to how to progress this conversation is that we have to progress it together from the planning and development stage. We need to make sure that our efforts are efficient and overlap rather than using up resources. The other point I would like to add, simply because I have this room full of people working on ocean literacy, please don't forget the developing regions who have very limited internet connections and bandwidth and data. Yes, we do live in a mobile era, and it's exciting to use all these new technologies and videos and high-resolution photographs, but please remember that a substantial population of the world needs low resolution, text, and solid content, not just flashy videos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And just a follow-up on your comments. It's one of the reasons that our group, the IOC, COSI, and the College of Exploration are doing our best to raise funds to provide opportunities for folks from developing nations and small island states to be at the table. Thank you. Okay, other comments? Yes, sir?
Thank you, Nick.
Nicholas Watts, Institute of Commonwealth Studies, the UN-SIDS Sharpen Partnership, but also the Commonwealth Association of Museums. I've been inspired by these presentations. Recently I was one of the advisors on the preparation of the curriculum framework for enabling the Sustainable Development Goals out of the Commonwealth Secretariat, and we're also trying to produce travelling exhibitions on fishing and fishing-dependent communities at the Commonwealth Association of Museums, who are meeting in Canada in a couple of weeks. That's my comment. My question, Graminus mentioned the role of culture, and I was wondering how you engage with, because we didn't see much culture in the content, but how you engage with institutions of culture, say museums, arts colleges, and so on, because we've seen here some really good examples of arts for ocean, well, I'll call it ocean literacy today, if I may.
Okay. Would one of the panelists like to...
Can I just give you one example? This ocean literacy guide has been used by the Sand Ocean Hall of the Smithsonian as a design guide. So one of the things that's important in this world, as you know, is clear and concise messages. And there's 7 principles in here of ocean science, which we think are important. I think to Wendy's and others' points, we need 7 principles that embrace, culture, art, history, archaeology, and so on. But this was designed for the United States specifically, and it's influenced the design of museums. It's also the founding design document for an ocean institute in Korea, one of their biggest aquariums. So that's really very exciting, for example. So those are 2 examples I can give you.
Okay, over here, ma'am.
Hi, I'm from the Gulbenkian Foundation in Lisbon, and picking up on the example that was given initially about how trees are used to, as an example where the oxygen comes from, I'd like to bring to your attention a report that was prepared by the Frameworks Institute, a Washington-based organization, and it's called Getting Below the Surface, and gives guidance on how to communicate about the oceans. It was commissioned by the Gulbenkian Foundation, and just to give you a very brief example, one of the things that they recommend is not to talk about the ocean as a vast and mysterious place, because vast and mysterious, it's not very appealing and can actually be a bit scary. And this brings back to how the ocean is framed and how we should take into account cultural aspects when communicating the ocean. Thank you.
Yes, very good. Yes, over here.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm from Foundation for Environmental Stewardship, as well as representing the major group, UN Major Group on Children and Youth. I lead a youth-led sustainable development organization based in Canada. We conduct SDG trainings in universities and colleges, and we've trained over 3,000 students in 13 universities just this year. Asked about what's the most relevant and least relevant goal for you. Every single university, it's always the oceans with the least relevant goal for people, and that was the case also in West Africa, as well as in Sweden and Germany, that other members of the Major Group Children and Youth conducted. And we also found that even here, that the youth who are represented are either from the academic background, purely doing their own research, or very few youth are actually here connecting with each other. And there seems to be a big dichotomy in huge people with deep expertise in the topic, versus those who have absolutely no idea what's going on. And I think that's generally the case for adults here as well. So I have 2 questions. One is, how do we bring the ocean literacy not as a special program that they have to add on to everything else that they're doing, but really permeating through these education for sustainable development, or the education that they already have? How do we permeate through that? And second, not just children, but youth, up to the age of 30, how do we bring the message of ocean literacy and the value of ocean to the general public for young people, not just the children?
We're curious to know if you have the answers to those questions. We're curious to know your thoughts.
Right. We actually had a debrief session yesterday with all the Major Group Children and Youth, and our conclusion is we actually don't know.
So, yes, Craig.
We have very diverse thoughts, but we have no idea.
I think you have to build it into every step. and consult with the people who have the expertise in order to guide. Obviously, there's expertise in answering your question of what don't you know, but there's expertise in answering how you do come to know. I think you have to build it in every step, and that's at least one of the things that I was trying to show in the AORA demonstration, the Atlantic Ocean Alliance. But I think you heard a slice of it from everyone here. We have activities that are ongoing, and those activities are accomplishing some scientific objective. But while that activity is underway, there's an expression to the public to try and recruit new interest or recruit new levels of understanding. And I think one element of the level is just be committed to ocean literacy, build it into whatever program or activity we might find around this room, and you will be bound to generate results. Compare and contrast what generated more results for what level of investment, and slowly through the centrifuge of challenge, you're going to find the righter way forward.
Peter?
Hi, Peter Heckman from the Marine Institute in Ireland and associated with Craig and all others in the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance. Just want to share with you all a very typical Irish example. We create a party, but I'm talking about a very serious festival party, which has come from nothing, and its whole purpose is to engage an entire nation in the fact that it is an island in an ocean, but in a much bigger sense. But to employ all of the knowledge gained from ocean literacy, but to turn it into something that is entirely culturally based and society facing. So creating a whole of a city event, a festival in the city of Galway, invented over the last 2 years, which is drawing pro rata 4 million people, if it were in the city in the United States, to a weekend of festivities. And we're going to increase that hopefully by 25% this year. And it is actually part of a national strategy.
And Galway throws a great party.
I hear.
Yeah. Yes.
Hi, my name is Danny Washington. I'm from Miami, Florida originally. I'm here representing Ocean Unite as a network member, but I'm currently the host of a show called Exploration Nature Knows Best, which is a show on Fox syndicated to about 90 million homes in the U.S. And it's a part of a family of shows, which includes a show by Philippe Cousteau called Awesome Planet. Just touching on the subject of media and communicating it into culture, I just wanted to say the more that we can find ways to obviously reach people through video is very powerful. I think video is the most powerful form of communication that we have to date. And I would love to know how, for the panelists, how you are incorporating opportunities for the young people that you work with to use that media as a tool featuring themselves. So putting the young people in place of the communicator, I think, is so incredibly powerful because they will be speaking to their peers and they'll see themselves in each other. And so for me, that's really a big deal. And just a little backstory about myself as well. I grew up seeing any women who looked like me in marine science, but I finished my degree in marine biology and then moved into science communications, and I think it's a really new burgeoning field that a lot of us should get involved with, and upcoming scientists as well.
Yeah. It's Francesca. Francesca.
Yeah, thank you very much for this comment. Well, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but we showed a video in which we had kids speaking and telling us why it is important to learn about the ocean, what are their favorite sea creatures. So we started with that because we totally agree with you that we need to give voices to the kids, we need to give voices to also young people, and also I want to bring a nice example of how we have been able to engage with high school level students. We have a program in UNESCO which is called Youth Mobile and is teaching to kids how to code, but code for a purpose. So we had a very nice project with a city in Finland, and we basically gave them our ocean data, oceanographic data, and we told them, you can use those data to develop your own video game. And through that, they learned also, but they became more curious about the ocean and what does it mean to use those oceanographic data. Because they had to develop their own games, so they had to learn what is salinity, what is temperature, what does it mean for the environment. So that was a very nice example to use, what kids are used to use, like video games and things that are part of their life, but use them for a purpose.
Thank you, Francesca. We are actually out of time. I'm sorry. And I think there are many of us in this room that could answer your question. Unfortunately, we have no more time for examples. I would like to encourage everyone that has further questions to please quickly write them down and hand them to us. We'll be trying to answer them by email. And also on the pink cards, if you have suggestions for how to move our global community forward, please write that. And then finally, please see Janet and Sonia if you'd like information on their virtual reality demonstration. There's a lot of exciting things happening. And thank you all so much for hanging with us.